Hey, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Empowerment Through Encouragement. And I spend my time in this podcast talking about ADD and ADHD. And what I want to do today is I want to break this myth. I want to bust this myth about ADD being a motivational problem. It's not a motivational problem. It's a brain wiring difference. And I say it that way because it is a difference. And we all have differences about ourselves. And it doesn't make us defective. It doesn't make us an outcast. It just gives us the opportunity to see things maybe at a 70,000-foot view. We zoom out and we can zoom back in. And that's the beauty of this gift that we've all been given. Maybe not all of us have been given that, but for the others of us, I want to say it's a superpower. And this is exactly how I introduce myself. When I tell people that I have ADHD and it is my superpower, you can see the shift when people that have not heard that before, they get a smile on their face, and others that have ADD or ADHD, they're like, yeah, I like this. It is a wiring difference. Our brain is an electrical component. There's constant wiring and firing going on. So let me share something with you. When I was in the 7th grade, I had this project that was due, and it was the beginning of the 7th grade. And what it was to do a report on Ohio history. That's where I grew up. And so we had the first full quarter. So it was going to be our quarterly grade. And everything that we focused on, this was going to be the majority of our first quarter grade. Now, we had 9 weeks to do it. Now, let me ask you a question. How long do you think that I took to get started on that project? If you guess the first 8 weeks just to think about it, you are right on spot and you get a prize. So if you want to send me send me an email, make contact with me, I'll send you the prize. But the question that was asked to me, don't you care about your grades? And it's kind of a redundant question. Of course I cared about my grades, but it didn't inspire me. It didn't draw my attention. It didn't give me any kind of infusion, any desire to want. I mean, what difference did it make? And see, that was the problem. I didn't understand what the difference it was going to make. And had that maybe been communicated or conveyed, and how it was going to help me understand a little bit more of the community and about the heritage of the way that Ohio was developed, the way that towns were formed, the way that communities and cultures were created. Maybe then it would have gave me a little bit more inspiration. The question is I didn't want to fail. So how could I do this? And there were late nights that last 9 weeks. And I actually got a day extension. The teacher was so gracious about that. And I smile about it now because it's been several years. But I can remember that she gave me an extra day to complete it. And, for every grade, every day that you turn something in late, you kind of drop a letter grade. And I got a C+ on it. And the thing of it was the statement was then, see, you could have had a B+. But when it doesn't connect, then it doesn't make sense. And once we see how things connect, that's when life changes. So if you've ever felt that way, maybe you got uncomfortable because you wanted to do something, but you didn't follow through, you didn't do it, you put it off. It's not that you didn't care. It's just that you want to know a different approach. You want to understand maybe a little bit more. So today I want to break down this myth that it's about motivation. It's not about motivation. We're not lazy. And this is the thing, some people will say, well, you're just lazy. You didn't do it. You didn't get it done. That's laziness. No, it's not laziness. It's not just about trying harder. It's about motivation. It's about understanding the underlying root cause of why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? So if you were to tell me that, and this is what I did when I was a little kid, we had a fundraiser for our local YMCA, and we sold these cans of butter toffee peanuts. And the money was being used, and I can still remember what the money was being used for, to buy balls, to buy nets, to buy new equipment for the gymnasium, for the gymnastics team, to help provide other accesses for other kids. And that motivated me. Now, I think I was in the, let's see, third grade probably, because my first membership to the Y was when I was in the second grade. And in the third grade, I sold 1,200 cans of butter toffee peanuts. Now, they were $1 a can. I was the outstanding salesman. Now, why did I do that? Was it motivation? Well, it was motivation because I was inspired to make a difference for other people, even at an early age. Now, I outsold everybody. Like, I sold more by myself than the entire group of people combined. And I kept going back to the Y and getting more cases and more cases and more cases. And they said, "What are you doing with all these cases?" And I'd return my money in. And they're like, "How are you doing this?" And I said, "I'm just sharing my story." So when you give me a project that inspires me because it gives me a motivation, a desire to be different, a desire to contribute, my ADHD, my superpower, my high energy goes off the chart because it's making a difference. And this is what I want to help other people appreciate about your strength of ADHD. Your brain is wired different. So when we try to fit in the mold, it doesn't work. And that's what I want to help just demystify and debunk this fact, this feeling of importance and value based on what everybody else is doing. So it's not a character flaw. Let me say that again. It's not a character flaw. This is brain science, and this is a proven fact. It is brain science. You see, you can ask yourself the question, why can't I just make myself do it? Have you ever been asked that? Well, it seems that I have too, and I just shared a little story with you. But when you put things off, what you're saying is, not right now. I don't want to do this. It's not that important to me right now. My priorities are different. And when I understand my priorities, and then I can bring that element that I don't like in, and I want to share a tool with you later on in this, is to how we can do that, then it changes. And it's not about laziness or willpower. It's about prioritizing our action. You see, we're not broken. And this is what I want to communicate. Just because we're different doesn't make us broken. Our differences are the strengths. And I've shared this in several podcasts before, that creativity comes out of seeing things differently. When we step outside of the box, when we step outside of the jar, we can actually read the label. And I tell this to my clients, and I tell this to people that I talk to. It is difficult, impossible to read the label when you're inside the jar. And sometimes we're just inside that jar. We're encapsulated in our own world, and we can't figure ourselves out until we zoom out, jump outside of the jar, and go, "Oh, that's what I am." And once that revelation comes to light, it opens up the door for multiple avenues. So one of the things one of the things that I really wasn't crazy about, I don't like paperwork. And when I was in business, and I had a very successful construction business, there were a few customers that I had that I knew that they were there. Their money was there. There was no question at all. Anytime I had a doubt about somebody, I made sure that I took care of business like the day that we finished, and they had to have the money before we started, at least half, because if they didn't, then it didn't work, if they squabbled. But I had this one client, and I think I did 3 or 4 roof jobs every summer for probably 10 years. Him and his mom had 81 properties, and I did all their roofing. And it got to the point where it was so consistent. Like I would book him 2 years in advance of which homes we were going to replace the roofs on. And it got to the point where it was so consistent that I often didn't give him the bill when we got done with the job. I just moved on to the next job. And it might be 2 or 3 weeks later. And there were some additions and some things, and he knew, and everything was on the up and up. And he sometimes have to find me and say, hey, you haven't sent me the final bill yet. And I go, I know, Paul, but you're good for it. So I'll get with you at the end of this week. I just wanted to get on this job. And I would go to the next job. And it might be a couple of weeks, like I said, afterwards. Now, why did I do that? Was that bad business? No, it wasn't. In my response, in my reflection, it was not bad business. It was my ability to extend that. I knew that the money was there, but I didn't want to just sit down and write the final bill. Was I lazy? No, it just wasn't my high priority. Now, did I need money? Of course I did. Everybody needs money. But I knew that it was there. So it kind of fell off on that priority list. And this is just how I operated. And now I didn't operate now. Let me be clear, I don't operate that now. So when we work together, I usually have that taken care of, because otherwise I could fall into that trap. I might take my time getting that invoice sent to you. We might have a session before the money is exchanged, but that's not my practice anymore. And so I've learned to prioritize certain things about my life. Now, there's still days when I don't want to answer. I don't want to fill stuff out. I don't want to do the paperwork, but I bring it in and I integrate it in a process that I do some of the hard things first, and then the other things that I really want, that becomes my reward to be able to do. And knowing that it takes both the ingredients of whatever it is you're going to put in the oven and the heat of the oven to make that product edible. So sometimes doing the paperwork is the oven, and sometimes doing the fun stuff like talking to people. I love talking to people. I get more enjoyment out of that because it's real, it's interactive. That inspires me. But to continue to work with them, I've got to do that paperwork. So ADHD is not your brain being lazy. Your brain is wired for interest. That's what it is. You see, if you can focus on other things for hours on end, people will ask you, why can't you focus on this? Why can't you do this? Well, because it's hyperfocus. We love the things that we love. We're inspired by the things that we're inspired. That's a superpower. So when something clicks with me, I can get lost in reading certain material. And I can say, I'm only going to do this for 40. I'm only going to read for 45 minutes. I got myself on a timer. I'm going to do 45 minutes of reading. And it might be an hour or 2 or 3 beyond that 45 minutes. And I'm like, where did the time go? I was so entranced in that. And what it does is as I lose track of time. Now, I do this on days when, like on Sunday mornings, after I watch whatever I'm watching. Sunday mornings, I'll go out and I'll sit in the ground. And now that spring is out here, I'll go out and I'll put my feet on the ground and I'm grounding and I'm reading a book, or I'm reading a manual, or I'm reading a guide to understand me better. I'm inspired to understand me better, because know thyself and you can help the world. If you know the world, you won't be able to always help yourself. So it always is an internal reflection. So I can get lost. It's not mundane. It's not repetitive. It lights me up. My brain, all of a sudden, I'm reading, and why it takes me longer to read a certain area is because my creative mind just goes to implementation. It is, I'm reading something and I'm going, oh man, I could do that. What would that look like? And I start to envision what that scene would look like. And I'm reading this paragraph and I get inspired. And I also carry with me a little notebook. Or if I don't, I have my notes on my phone and I can talk into it so that it reminds me of the inspiration and the influence that I got. That inspires me. It's not repetitive. It is not mundane. It is inspirational. And see, the thing about it is that your brain is not broken. It just releases dopamine differently. And this is, some of the downsides of social media is because we're going to something that gives us artificial dopamine and it's not enough. And so what we do is we spend hours, or people will spend hours scrolling because they're trying to get that dopamine level in their body raised up. And so if you have ADHD or ADD, dopamine levels are lower. And there are other neurological conditions, and I say they're conditions, they're not your identity, where dopamine levels are down, and dopamine in a supplement form or in an activity form raises that dopamine up, and now you get a natural response, or you get an influx of supplement that counters the loss of dopamine or the lack of dopamine. So I had a worker that coworker that worked with me at Boeing when I was an aircraft mechanic, and I worked for industrial engineering for Boeing, and he was a genius. And you give him a problem and he could solve it, like redesigning a tool for better efficiency. This guy was amazing, but he'd forget to eat lunch. He'd lose track of time. He'd get stuck on a project and he'd get so entranced. He didn't even hear the brake bells go off because he was so entranced. He loved the challenge. And his brain lit up when you gave him troubleshooting complex systems. That's what he strived for. But now, the problem was, you ask him to fill out the timesheet because we had to allocate what hours we were putting so we could bill it to a project. He'd forget. The end of the week, he was just entranced in getting things done. That's how he worked. And it was like constantly he was told, dude, you got to get your hours in. They got to be allocated. You got to have them go to a certain project. You've got to get this done. He was like, man, I forgot. And people would say, how could you forget? Well, this is before I understood. This is before really knew. When you think that when you forget something or you forget to do something that's trivial in the mind of somebody with ADHD, some people think that it is laziness, but it's not. It's just that we're wired differently. Now, he did get paid, so there's no threat there, but it was like a constant reminder. Hey, dude, you got to put your time on what project you're working on so that we can allocate it. We can bill it out. We have so many hours allocated. Get this done. Now, here again, it's not about our effort or priorities, but hyperfocus lights us up. It's not the boring, repetitive stuff. This is where things get slipped up when we're doing something boring or repetitive that seems mundane. Social media posting, difficult for me. It doesn't inspire me. Okay, it just falls in the minutia of a bunch of stuff. And even creating my profile on certain apps, it's not what I love doing. So I had a conversation yesterday, and somebody said, "Am I on the wrong page?" And I said, "No. What page are you on?" And he goes, "Well, let me share my screen with you. I'm going to pull up your page. You've got a lot of recommendations, but you don't have a picture on here, and you don't have some description. I go, yeah, I know, I need to do that. It doesn't inspire me. I would rather have a conversation with somebody or 10 people or 20 people. And that is what lights me up. And I could talk and I can interact for hours without any issue. That's how I'm wired. So I need to get me an assistant to take care of all those things for me. That's another story. We're not talking about that today. So it's not about priorities. It's about dopamine. It's about what inspires you. So the science behind it, in simple terms, what's happening in the ADHD brain? Well, in simple terms, like I said earlier, it's about dopamine. It's the brain's motivation or reward chemical. And as I said, people with ADHD often have a little bit lower dopamine level. Now, when you understand this, maybe this will help you. Maybe you have ADHD. Maybe you're hearing this for the first time. Maybe you have a child or a spouse or a coworker with ADHD. Hopefully this will help you understand them a little bit better, because it's not just knowledge is power. That's just garbage. Because if that were the truth, we would be so powerful because there's so much knowledge available on the internet. But when you understand, now it permeates and now it settles into your system. It becomes part of your identity. And part of your identity is understanding. When you understand what's going on with somebody with ADHD, then you have a better appreciation. And when appreciation replaces expectation, gratitude rises. Let me say that again. When appreciation overrides expectation, then gratitude rises. Gratitude for what that person or what you have the ability to do. So when we appreciate ourselves more and we're grateful for who we are and our strengths and our unique different wiring, that's when we change the world. Now, even if you don't have ADHD, when you do that, when you apply that simple principle to your own life, you change the world and you change all those that are around you. And that's the beauty about this empowerment through encouragement. You see, the thing of it is that those of us with ADHD, we need a little more stimulation to get the same motivational push. It's not that we're unmotivated. That's not the case. It's just that we need a different kind of spark. Now, I want you to think about it like this. Think about it with a car with a tricky ignition. And if you're with me today, I know that there are some folks that are with me that'll be watching this and they can remember back a time when they had to, kind of kick the tire, rub the hood, and then scream at the car, put the key in the ignition, and it would start up. Or you had to slam the hood to get the wiring that was loose, or you had to get inside and you had to tap the starter to get it going. Well, it's a tricky ignition. Now, when you have a regular brain, you just get in the car, you turn the key, starts up, fuel, gets the spark going. But that's a general typical brain. But now with ADHD and your dopamine level is low, it's kind of like the battery is low on juice. You need jumper cables from another source. You need something to kind of connect the bridge the gap. You need something that inspires you. Why do I want to get in the car? Why do I want to do this? So you need that little extra juice. You need that connection. Maybe it's a push down the hill. I don't know if you, when I first started driving, I had a vehicle that was a stick shift, and sometimes it just didn't want to start. So we'd get out and push that thing, and it was a Volkswagen Rabbit, 1976 Volkswagen Rabbit. And we'd push that thing and we'd get it going and then drop it into first gear, and it would gets going. Now, maybe some of you are laughing about that, but that's an actual true story. And I remember there was a couple times when my girlfriend was with me, and I put her in the driver's seat because she was a little bit lighter than me, and I'd push that and she'd pop the clutch, and it was quite amusing. But you do what you've got to do to get where you want to go. Let me say that again. You do what you've got to do to get where you want to go, not where you have to go, where you want to go. So, maybe it's turning the music up and playing something while you're doing something that's mundane. So let's flip the script here a little bit. Let's leverage the interest for success. How do I get myself to do the things that don't interest me? You see, there's strategies and there's tactics, and you find the strategy that works best for you. I call this a brain hack, and it's hacking our brain to the wiring that is taking place into my life. So one of the tricks that I do is that I pair something that I don't like to do with something that I do like to do, something that stimulates me, something that inspires me. Now there are times when I've cut a bunch of wood, and that's an inspiration. I cut when trees fall, or I get some tree cutters, people that cut down trees, and they'll actually bring me the trees, and they'll just dump them in my yard. Now I get motivated. I go out there and I start cutting away, stacking it. And then I look at the pile and I go, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get through this. And then I start thinking about, okay, I'm just going to split this amount. And I create kind of a motivation, like how many times can I do this? How far could I get in a half an hour? And then I've got to stack it up to boot. So it's an inspiration. Then I start thinking about those warm fire days when it's like 20 below zero out. And I'm thinking about sitting in front of that fire, and I'm thinking about listening to the crackling of that wood, and it gives me that motivation. And I think about that, and it gives me that inspiration to keep going. And then sometimes I can get lost in the moment. So I know somebody that dreads doing house chores. Now, I love a clean house. And I know somebody that dreads doing house chores. They hate dishes. They hate sweeping. They hate mopping. They hate all of that stuff. So he's created a growth. It's called a growth and grind hour. He takes and puts his favorite podcast, growth podcast, and he puts that in his earbuds. And so he's not so much focused on what he has to do. He's focused on what he's allowing to take place, to get done. And as he brings this positive influence into his brain, and now he associates that with cleaning or doing the chores, now there's a different mindset around it. There's a different mentality that's developed. Now it's not a have to, it's a get to, because it's a process that needs to be done. You can't eat off of paper plates the rest of your life. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. And you can't if you do let all the dishes stack up, somebody's got to do them. And if you live by yourself, guess what? I don't know any pixie dust that's going to make those dishes get cleaned by themselves. I bought a self-cleaning oven, but the problem was I didn't buy a dishwasher that was self-emptying. I'm like, what the heck? It's instant LG. Life is good, but it doesn't put the dishes away. So I have to put those dishes away, and I can't just use them out of the dishwasher. That doesn't work unless you want to be a bachelor for the rest of your life. So there's that motivation. So what can you do? You can couple this with less than mundane opportunities, inspiration like this growth and grind hour with your tasks. You can integrate different things. You can break your tasks up into small chunks. Like each at the end of each week, I will look at my desk and I will go, why do I have these forms out? Because I've been working with this client or this client, and I'm making notes. And rather than just walking it from here 7 feet over, putting it in their file, I just set it over to the side, and I've got my next client in front of me because I'm focused on that. And so at the end of the week, if I have several files, I just take 25 minutes and I start organizing. I start putting things away. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. I reward myself immediately. Like if I get this done, I'm going to celebrate. And one of my big things that I tell my clients is celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Impound that into your body. Bring that into your body. Make that a proclamation because you wire yourself for getting something accomplished, something that you want to do. So when you anchor those feelings in, it's like going to a basketball game, a football game, or a hockey game, and your team scores and you go, yes. Well, that's what you're doing in your body. You're making that dopamine in that moment get fixated. You're anchoring it. And now when you go to do that again and you do that, changes everything. So I want you to redefine motivation and worth. You're going to ask the question, so am I broken because I need these little hacks? No, you're not broken. You're human and you're adapting. And that's what I want you to understand is that we all have different brains. We all have different styles. We all have different likes. So embrace what it is that you gravitate towards, what your proclivities are. And it changes the trajectory, your outcome, long-term and short-term. And it builds success upon success. And these are micro steps to building success. So I want to make sure that I've made this like the banner or my megaphone today is you're not lazy. You are resourceful and so creative. And this isn't just giving you a trophy. This isn't just hyperbole. This isn't just to make you feel good. This is a fact. You're resourceful and you're creative outside the box. You've probably figured out more ways to survive, adapt, and get things done than most people realize. And you take it for granted. I know I've taken it for granted because I think, doesn't everybody do this? No, not everybody does this. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't make some sense. If I can do it, you mean not everybody's doing it? No, not everybody's doing it. And then I begin to appreciate my gifts, my strengths, my superpowers. I begin to appreciate the way that I present differently than other people. I appreciate my abilities at a higher level. Here again, when my appreciation overrides my expectation of what I think I should do, my gratitude for who I am rises to another level. It's not a weakness. It's a superpower. You see, this is when the lights go on and your brain is firing and wiring and your creativity is just rolling and you could light up a town. So I want to close in this. I want to share this last thing. The next time someone, especially your own inner critic, the one that says, you could have done that better. You didn't do it as good as someone else. Maybe this isn't for you. You're not that good of a speaker. You're not that good of a coach. You're not that good of a student. You're not that good of a player. What are you thinking? That whisper in your voice, why can't you just get your room clean? Why can't you just do like your brother? We've heard that saying, why can't you be more like your brother? Well, because I'm not my brother. I'm me. Appreciate me. When that little voice comes inside of our own head from our own voice, I want you to remember this. You're wired for interest. You're built to light up when something inspires you, something matters deep inside of you. And the world needs that kind of fire. So thank you. I appreciate you. I hope you appreciate yourself. And listen, be inspired, be outstanding, and live a life that inspires you, and you'll inspire other people. Until we meet the next time, be outstanding, have an outstanding day, an outstanding weekend, and enjoy who you are